Welcome, friends, to the first official episode of This Week in Fantasy Movies. San Diego Comic-Con and its aftermath have given us a veritable cornucopia of news, and it's our first episode, so let's skip the fancy intro and get right to the news. First up, Taylor Swift fans have tried to cancel the vampire Lestat de Lioncourt. Sorry, slight correction. The fictional vampire Lestat de Lioncourt, the titular character from Anne Rice's books Interview with the Vampire. The other weekend, the AMC network released new trailers for its TV adaptations of her books, Mayfair Witches and Interview with the Vampire. The latter is up to the third book, where Lestat becomes a rock star. Sam Reed plays the titular vampire, and, true to form, he eats in this role.
Do I look like I need you?
And, fan culture being fan culture, someone on Twitter put together a collage of stills with Lestat and Taylor Swift side by side, featuring a line from her song Blank Space. Of course then, Swifties being Swifties, they got aggressive in the face of a potential rival and lashed out at Lestat, calling him an ugly white man and shaming him for even daring to aspire to Taylor Swift's level of fame. And sure, it's easy to laugh at overzealous fans. Plenty of people on Twitter definitely had their fun last week. But Hollywood studios would kill to create this kind of organic marketing. I mean, we would have talked about it here anyway, but would the internet at large? The real winner of this Stan war is AMC. In indie fantasy news, this week we'll see the release of Cedric and Alicia, a fantasy film shot at a castle in Connecticut. This epic follows the romance between the knight Sir Cedric Vale and the Lady Alicia, who's betrothed to the Baron that Cedric is sworn to protect.
How came you to be wed to the Baron?
I ask myself that same question many a night.
You're seeing the complications come into play, right? Cedric and Alicia is the first part of a whole series of chivalrous epics, planned by Ascendium Studios, all inspired by the vibe of Arthurian legends. Since filming this movie, the creative duo of Michael Rooney and Benjamin Derry also wrote a book and a script for another film in the series. In an interview with Connecticut Insider, Rooney says they started from absolutely nothing, with no funding and no backing, to meager funding and an actual crew, and now it's getting premiered at the theater that I used to go up and watch Disney and Marvel and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter movies at. It's really spectacular. The heyday of funding your movie on Kickstarter is long past, but even so, the guys at Ascendium Studios managed to pull it off, raising $25,000 and getting help from their community in northern Connecticut. At first, they thought it was just going to be a web series with 5 to 10 minute episodes, but it quickly expanded to a whole feature film. Now it's been picked up by Gravitas Ventures, a lifesaver to indie filmmakers, and it's coming to video on demand this week. So congrats to Ascendium Studios on releasing their first feature. I know firsthand that it's a hard road, so it's an accomplishment just to get across the finish line. Another project that made it across the finish line is the animated proof of concept for Cradle Unsold, an adaptation of Will White's fantasy book series.
Wei Shi Linden, your spirit holds no power. You are empty. Unsold.
This is the final result of another Kickstarter from last year, which raised $1.25 million, with animation led by Jay Oliva, a director on both Marvel and DC shows, Jackie Chan Adventures, and the upcoming Twilight of the Gods movie for Netflix. This may just be a proof of concept, but it's also a fun piece of animation on its own. I was giddy on the edge of my seat the whole time I watched it, and I can't wait to see a network pick this up for the full series. But let's take a look at some projects that are actually on the way. First up, rejoice, ladies! There's a new trailer for Wynonna Earp Vengeance.
When it comes to true heroes, Wynonna is the most genuine I've ever known.
This feature is a continuation of the sci-fi series that continued the spirit of Supernatural. Tubi has picked up this movie, dropping in the fall. Then we've got a trailer for Slingshot, a sci-fi psychological thriller that tries really hard to pretend it's not a slow burn.
Your imagination is playing a cruel trick on you.
How do you know this?
But they can't fool me. It's clearly a supercut of all the most dramatic moments. Shame on Bleecker Street for trying to mask over a perceived weakness. Slow burns have value on their own terms, and more distributors should embrace that. You can check out Slingshot on August 30th. Okay, we don't really cover horror on This Week in Fantasy Movies, but I have to tell you about this one.
The so-called Bagman is a figure common to almost every culture.
See, I'm playing my first complete D&D campaign, and 2 of us got bags of holding when we started our game. But along the way, some kind of tear opened up in our bags to let in this creepy little guy who would only give us our stuff in exchange for our most precious items. So imagine my surprise when this trailer pops up in my feed.
I am the Batman. You wish to see me? Your most precious item.
Okay, this is the sword that we used to make Gleahan. I think it's a one-of-a-kind.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh, no! Instead of me telling you about my D&D campaign, why not watch an adaptation of someone else's D&D campaign? The Critical Role team has a new preview clip for Legend of Vox Machina. Our brave band of murder hobos are chased through the streets by guards because they're wrongfully accused of murder.
Might have to rethink the whole shaking thing.
Season 3 comes out on October 3rd on Amazon Prime. In anime news, we have a trailer for Nina the Starry Bride, the story of an orphan girl plucked out of poverty to live the life of a princess, premiering October 10th. There's also Uzumaki, the adaptation of the infamous mind-bending manga, coming to Toonami on September 28th. From Hungarian animator Aaron Gauder, we have Four Souls of Coyote, a fable about a Native American tribe fighting the construction of an oil pipeline.
Grandpa, was that the end?
Of course it is not.
There's also a first look at Ayanu from Nigerian animation studio Lionforge Entertainment. And finally, a trailer for Spellbound, which really wants you to know that it was directed by John Lasseter.
Excellent service, Lawrence. I'm giving you 5 stars.
It looks fine. I'll definitely watch it on November 22nd because it's my job to watch fantasy movies, but it's clearly made solely for kids, and I wouldn't fault anyone who skips it for something that commits a little more to its own bit.
I thought you were just being dramatic.
Why would I do that?
Because you're a teenager.
I just hope I'm wrong about this call. Anyway, let's do the numbers. Harold and the Purple Crayon is starting off pretty weak at number 6, earning just $2.4 million on its first day. Despite what Hollywood will tell you, a single day's box office numbers aren't everything, and this film definitely can make back its $40 million production budget. But that doesn't mean it won't be an uphill climb, the lackluster reviews aren't helping, and that doesn't count for its marketing budget either. But it helps that the people who do see it seem to enjoy it. That said, it's also hard to compete with the absolute juggernaut that is Deadpool and Wolverine. It earned more money on Friday than the entire rest of the top 10 list combined. It's rocking movie theaters so hard that we're seeing aftershocks in the stock market. On Tuesday, AMC was up a whopping 11%. By the end of the week, we saw big gains for Cinemark, IMAX, and Marcus Theaters. We're seeing that reflected in streaming too, with both previous Deadpool movies in a commanding lead. Behind them, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes also just came to Hulu in 3rd place. Let's stick with Ryan Reynolds for a bit because we have word from Collider that his collaboration with the legendary animator Don Bluth is not dead. The Netflix adaptation for the 1980s video game Dragon's Lair is still in the works, but being retooled. A while back, prolific film and TV producer Roy Lee teamed up with Don Bluth to help make his long-suffering Dragon's Lair adaptation. Bluth has spent decades trying to get it off the ground, but despite bringing us An American Tail, The Land Before Time, and Anastasia, it's been a slog. Dragon's Lair is in development on Netflix right now, and after the success of Black Mirror's episode Bandersnatch, Bluth and Lee have tried to make this adaptation into a whole choose-your-own-adventure movie. According to Lee, they had a 400-page script that would let the viewer go in different ways, with Ryan Reynolds playing Dirk the Daring, but Netflix would pull the plug on that format. Now they're reconfiguring it as a linear movie. As bummed as I am to learn that we're missing out on something so appropriate for this specific project, it's good to know that it's still going forward and that Don Bluth is coming back to direct another hand-drawn animated film. He deserves this. Speaking of things people deserve, Henry Cavill and the Warhammer 40k adaptation. It's slow going in negotiations between Games Workshop, which owns the Warhammer brand, and Amazon, which wants to make the series. In an investor call, Games Workshop reiterated that they have until December 2024 to agree to creative guidelines. Basically, what this means is they're trying to make sure Amazon treats their baby the way Games Workshop wants it to be treated. It's kind of like how the Tolkien estate can get really particular about how Middle-earth is portrayed. It's not common for a big hurdle like this to hit a big company like Amazon, but this kind of drawn-out negotiation isn't necessarily rare. Games Workshop has a product and Amazon wants it, so it's a seller's market. The same kind of dynamic pops up with someone like Brandon Sanderson, who doesn't care about the money and just wants to see the work be adapted well. It's hard to say what's going on internally at Games Workshop or Amazon, and an investor call can only tell us so much, but I bet that's the dynamic at play right now. Amazon and Games Workshop have 5 more months to hammer out an agreement or the deal is off. Please don't make Henry Cavill sad. We don't like Henry Cavill being sad. In rapid-fire news, Peacock has dropped the Battlestar Galactica reboot before it ever took flight. It's easy to say, good riddance, we already have Battlestar Galactica at home. But also consider, Sam Esmail knows what he's doing. This is the guy who brought us Mr. Robot, so it's no surprise that Esmail Corp and UCP are shopping this project around to other networks. Meanwhile, true to form, Russell T Davies is making another Doctor Who spin-off titled The War Between the Land and the Sea. This was super common for RTD back in the late 2000s, with shows like Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with this. Shortly after announcing this, Disney canceled Renegade Nell after just 1 season. They've also shelved the Star Wars series Lando, which would have brought back Donald Glover to play Lando Calrissian. Showrunner Justin Simien says there was a Bible, concept art, and scripts, and that now he's grieving the loss of his series, which, let me tell you, is a weirdly common reaction for a lot of us artists. I felt it too. The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic was renewed for a 2nd season, and Dan Harmon's mythical animated comedy Krapopolis has been renewed for a 4th season over at Fox. And the hit Vivzy Pop show Has Been Hotel has been renewed for its 3rd and 4th seasons, before the 2nd season is even out. which shows a lot of confidence for A24 and Amazon. And Netflix India has greenlit an action fantasy series titled Rox Brahmins, The Bloody Kingdom. This comes from creative duo Raj and DK, who had previously gained recognition for Guns and Gulab's, a send-up to 90s Bollywood movies. Star Trek made a splash at Comic-Con this year, with previews for Season 3 of Strange New Worlds, where the away team turns into Vulcans.
My emotions feel
overwhelming. Oh, I cannot handle. Oh, this is too much.
You don't feel anything?
No. And to be honest, I'm a little jealous. That looks like fun.
The 5th and final season of Lower Decks.
Now you are invited to join them for one last adventure.
Whoa, is he talking about us?
And a trailer for Section 31, which looks to be infiltrating the Mirror Universe.
All hail the Emperor!
There's also casting announcements for Starfleet Academy with a bunch of returning faces. They're working on a live-action comedy with Tawny Newsome, who plays Ensign Mariner, and they're exploring a full-on stage musical. In labor news, the unions behind Hollywood Basic Crafts have overwhelmingly ratified a new 3-year contract with the AMPTP, which represents the major Hollywood film studios. The Teamsters, electrical workers, plasterers and cement masons, plumbers, and general laborers each individually had more than 90% of their members vote to approve the contract. This also comes a few weeks after IATSE ratified its own contract. Meanwhile, SAG-AFTRA is on strike against video game studios including Activision, Electronic Arts, Epic Games, Insomniac Games, Formosa Interactive, Take-Two Productions, VoiceWorks, and Blindlight, as well as both Disney and Warner Brothers. The voice actors are on strike for one reason and one reason only: artificial intelligence. Speaking with Deadline on the picket line, National Executive Director Duncan Crabtree Ireland said, "I don't understand how any company could look at what happened last year and think that we aren't serious about AI protections." Here's hoping the voice actors get the protections they deserve. Aside from a new Rings of Power trailer, the cast also did an interview with Entertainment Weekly where Charlie Vickers, who plays Sauron, admitted that he had told lies on the first season's press tour.
The first year we were having to keep a lot to ourselves, having to find out, in situations like this, having to find our way around questions because we were so sworn to secrecy. That was it's quite...
I got so good at lying. I told so many lies on that press tour.
And this right here is why we don't cover press tour material. It's all marketing blitz, and there's almost never any substance, and sometimes the actors full-on lie. That said, it's also fun to hear actors' genuinely zany moments on set. For example, Jamie Lee Curtis recalls in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that Cate Blanchett would be fully dressed up as Lilith on the set of Borderlands, while also rehearsing for Tar in her role as an orchestra conductor. Of course, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Film sets often have actors waiting around for a long time while the crew does a set change or re-rigs a light. So Blanchett says, "There'd often be an hour where I had time to sit down and look at the score." Finally, the House of the Dragon finale got leaked on TikTok for a hot minute. But that doesn't matter anymore since the finale is officially out now. I'm even watching it right as this video drops. What did you think of Season 2? Let us know in the comments. Looking ahead this week, check out Cedric and Alicia for some Arthurian-style romance. For a return to bonkers Hong Kong action cinema, please do yourself a favor and watch Twilight of the Warriors Walled In. A guy snaps a katana in half with his teeth. And for some mind-bending French animation, Sirocco and the Kingdom of the Winds comes to select theaters on Sunday. If you find yourself looking for something to watch this week, maybe check out the Time Bandits remake on Apple TV+, Suicide Squad Isekai on Hulu, Dungeon People on High Dive, or Bye Bye Earth over on Crunchyroll. Thanks for watching this world premiere of This Week in Fantasy Movies. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more, why not hit that little share button and send the link to your tabletop group? We'll be back with more in fantasy movies next week.